What if the person you're really resenting is yourself? Ooh, I bet that one hurt, didn't it? I wanted to start off with a little bit of a plot twist. I first learnt this in rehab when there was this woman that I absolutely despised and I resented. I found her so irritating. Anything she said, I was just like, oh. And then it came up in one of the counselling sessions, the topic of projection. And it's quite a hard thing to comprehend because it doesn't really make much sense. And it seems a little bit like mumbo jumbo, but it's factual. Sometimes we find other people irritating, or we resent them, or we're jealous of them, or whatever, because there's parts of them that we see in ourselves that we don't like. But we're too afraid to admit that it's a part of ourselves that we don't like. So instead we project our own insecurities and doubts, fears, onto other people, because that's easier for us to comprehend. Because our subconscious mind knows we don't like those things about ourselves, but it's too painful for our conscious mind to process. So instead it comes out as a projection. You notice it. They're mirroring back to you what you don't like. Now that might be a bit of a mind-blown situation. Well, you might be thinking, no, it's not the same for me. But of course you will think like that, because this has been programmed specifically as a coping mechanism. Your conscious mind doesn't want to process all the bad things about you, because you would feel like shit, wouldn't you? If you were fully, constantly, always aware of every flaw and bad thing about yourself, you would have a very hard time existing. So what we do to make yourself better is we bury most things. So with projection, you've got an amazing opportunity, because through the realization and the clarity that you are just simply noticing something in yourself that you don't like, first of all, you realize that it's nothing about the actual person that you resent. Therefore, the resentment for them starts to fade away, because you're like, actually, it's me. And like I said, that's going to be hard, because it's going to be difficult for you to explore and dig that out and accept that, because your brain's trying as hard as it can to say, no, I'm not that person. But say, for example, you find arrogant people irritating. Really look at yourself and say, could I be arrogant? Say, for example, you find people that are over the top irritating. Ask yourself, at times have I been over the top? Ask yourself, if you get annoyed with people that are always in victim mode and moaning and blaming, ask yourself, am I in victim mode, moaning and blaming? You may find that you are. And like I said, when you realize this, the resentment you have for that person disappears. So you've now successfully stopped resenting a person. So the video's done. But the beautiful thing about it is you get a new piece of information of something that you get to work on yourself. So if it's the arrogance, for example, that you don't like, there's a couple of ways to attack this. I mean, this is a video for another day, actually. But the arrogance could be a number of things. It could be a perception of arrogance, and it may not even be arrogance. It may just be confidence. But your perception of it may seem arrogant, because you've got low self-worth. Therefore, somebody so high up with that confidence seems arrogant, because it seems so far apart from where you're at. You might also decide that you want to work on being less arrogant. Maybe you want to drop that coping mechanism and understand a little bit about why people are arrogant. Usually arrogant people, strangely enough, have low self-esteem, because they are trying to overcompensate for something that they don't actually have within themselves. So to hide it, they have to project this other persona in order to be able to feel normal. Underneath a lot of people that show off and are arrogant or materialistic, you'll find a very insecure person who is just trying to cope with the way that they feel about themselves. I don't want to get too deep, but what we're experiencing here, right, is that we get a chance to learn about ourselves so much on a day-to-day basis. Even when someone irritates you, rather than going, oh, you know, stop irritating, we actually get an opportunity to go, am I a bit like that? Maybe I am. Why am I like that? Is that serving me? Where does that come from? Is it okay? Is there nothing wrong with that behavior? Or am I trying to overcompensate because I want people to like me? Maybe I'm pleasing people because I want them to like me because I feel unloved in myself. Maybe I've got low self-worth and I don't love myself. Maybe I need to work on giving myself more love. Therefore, I feel less validated. Therefore, I'll feel less need for validation. And then I won't need to talk so much to get people to like me. And therefore, I'll feel better in myself, and I also won't be irritated by Jenny. Now, this takes a long time to start unpicking these things and understanding them, but we do them one by one. It's a progressive journey that we must unfold. But there's a huge amount of potential in any scenario that you have to learn and grow from it. You get the choice. Have an argument, feel resentful, spiteful, bitter, and have a crap day, or you get a chance to take responsibility and develop yourself, become a better human being, and stop that person from irritating you because you realize what's really going on. Something a little bit closer to home. Something that's not just in front of you, but that's inside of you. Now, another way you can stop yourself from resenting somebody, and this might be somebody that's done something to you specifically. So you're saying, Lewis, yeah, that's all well and good if it's someone that's irritating, but this person has punched me. This person has sexually abused me. This person, and you can give me some real extreme examples that justify why that resentment should take place forever and be very extreme, because how dare they do that to me? Another thing I learned in rehab is, first of all, resentments keep you sick. That's an expression that I learned, because resentments make you feel so angry all the time, don't they? How dare you do that? I believe she treated me that way. But the crazy thing about resentments is we have this false belief that in some way we're punishing the other person by being resentful towards them. I'm never going to speak to them again. I hate them, and I'm going to hold on to this grudge forever. I will never forgive them. But what some people don't realize is that's going on in your head, and that's invisible to the other person. And even if you're vocal enough to let them know, they don't care. So they're walking around, happy as Larry, going on with their day, whilst you're sitting there going... So not only do resentments keep you sick, but they give your power away. When you resent somebody, they win. Because you're pissed, you're angry, you're resentful, you're jealous, you're all those things, bitter, and the other person doesn't give a monkeys. If we've got an international audience here, that means it doesn't give a Now, if you want to take your power back, again, I'm not saying this is easy. If you want to take your power back, you drop that resentment. And you can do this in a few ways, some more extreme than others, but all are going to be uncomfortable. And most growth in personal development and mindset is uncomfortable, by the way. So we want to get used to that experience of uncomfortability and understand that it's a good thing. And when we feel the sensation of discomfort due to challenging ourselves, we see that as a sign of growth rather than a sign of something being wrong. But there are a few ways that you can stop this person taking the power away from you. Whilst they're whistling, happy, living their life, and you're angry and resentful, you can make the decision to forgive them. Not for them, not because they deserve it, but you deserve peace. If you can find it within yourself to be the bigger person and say, do you know what? What that person did was unthinkable. But I don't know what was going on for them. I don't know why they did it. I don't know if they had mental health problems. I don't know their upbringing. I don't know their thoughts, their beliefs, their motives, their drivers. All I know is I don't want to feel like this anymore. And one way I can release this is to try to begin to accept and forgive this person. Now, that's not easy. That's real tough stuff. But if you can become free, and you don't have to be angry and resentful and bitter anymore. And you don't have to continue telling yourself that story anymore. And this could be something that you've been telling yourself for 20 or 30 years. And how is that serving you? It's not serving you at all. And every time you feel angry, that person gets a little bit more power, and that person wins a little bit more. So use that as your driving factor as to why you're giving them that forgiveness, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve it. Now, I'm going to give you an extreme way because I want to make these trainings powerful for you. But there's a way that you can completely flip the script. And it's going to seem bizarre, but it really works. And it's another element of coaching. But no matter what has happened to you, you can find a way of being grateful for it, even if it's the worst thing that's ever happened. And sometimes it's so difficult. One of my mentors, Dr. John DeMartini, and I'm using him actually and I just want to put my hands up as a way of being able to say what I want to say without it directly coming from my mouth. So I just want to hold my hands up to say I feel uncomfortable saying this. But Dr. John DeMartini has been in the industry for over 50 years. He's read over 3,000 books. He's a doctor, and he's one of the top coaches in the world. He says, it doesn't matter if you were raped. It doesn't matter what happened. What's happened has happened. all that's left is the story that you tell yourself about how you're the victim. Now, this is really controversial now. Now, I'm not for 1 minute saying that you don't deserve the time to grieve, to feel, to understand, reflect, go through that process. But if you find yourself 10 years later still holding on to that and it affecting your life, you're way past the grief stage and you're holding on to a story that doesn't serve you. Now, what we can do is we can change that story. And that's what Dr. John Demartini said. He said he had someone at his seminar. They started crying about all this sexual trauma they'd had. And most people would have gone, whoa, okay, yeah, that one you can be resentful for. Fair play. Continue running the story. But does it serve them? No matter what it is, does it serve them? And remember, they're still giving the power to the person that did that to them. So not only can we try and forgive, but we can actually try and find moments of gratitude and see how that helped. And Dr. John Demartini, this is on my podcast, by the way. You can listen to this episode. He talks about this on this episode, by the way. So go and check my podcast out. That's Turning Adversity into an Asset. He says to her, and he starts coaching her, tell me some of the good things that happened as a result of that sexual abuse. She was like, oh, there is none. He was like, all right, well, where was your father? She said, oh, he left me. He said, did he give you any type of support that you needed? She said, yeah, I was actually looking for a fatherly figure and this man met that need for me. Is that okay? Has it got any other benefits? I was able to grow up very quickly and be very independent with my sexuality and be very powerful within it. He said, has that had benefits to you? He said, yes, it has. In what way? She said, I've used it in my career. It's made me a very successful woman. He said, amazing. Have you paid the molester his commission for that? She said, no, I guess I haven't. And there was more to that conversation, but you get the point. We get the opportunity to decide the perspective in which we see things and the story in which we're running in our head. I've been sexually abused. I don't run the story of I'm a victim. Dr. John Demartini said he got a when he was 9 years old from a babysitter. So what? It's a little bit different when it's a man and a woman, I must admit. But I was sexually abused. I don't run the victim story. I'm grateful for those things. All those bad things that ever happened to me taught me so much. And I'm now blessed with the ability to help other people. That's the frame that I see. They didn't happen to me. They happened for me. They might have been complicated. It might have been confusing. They might have derailed me for some time. But for the large part of my life, I'm going to be in a good state and I'm going to be in a good position to help other people. We have choice. A situation is not a situation. A situation is simply a perception of how you choose to see a scenario. And we can turn it from the worst thing that's ever happened to you to something that we forgive and just accept, or something that we can even become grateful for. And sometimes it's hard, don't get me wrong. It's not so long ago that me and my wife were pregnant. We were 5 months into a pregnancy. She was in America, I was in Bali. We met up in the UK to have the baby. No, I was in Dubai actually, and you couldn't give birth because we weren't married then, because you can't give birth unless you're married in Dubai. So we met up in the UK, and the NHS kindly supported us in having a baby. And I hadn't seen any of the scans up until this point, 5 months in, because she'd been in America. So I booked a 3D scan for the first time to see our baby in 3D form. And the moment I saw that camera and saw the 3D baby, I immediately fell in love. I immediately felt the dad instinct kick in. I need to protect you. It was just like an immediate thing the moment I laid eyes on my daughter. 2 weeks later, we were giving birth to a stillborn. We found out that day that she was born with water around the brain, which meant that she didn't actually have a brain that was developed and she had no chance of survival. Now, we had to give birth to Mia. That was what we called her. We had to have a funeral for Mia. With that, it's almost impossible to find a way to be grateful for that. And I'm not at the stage of being grateful for that. Like I said, this is a process. Okay? And you have to allow yourself the grief, the reflection. But I am in a position where I can do things that are in my control to make that scenario feel less painful. And what I did is I reached out to the charity that supported us after, which is a charity called SANS, by the way. Shout out SANS. And SANS had a sister company called Remember My Baby, and they came around and we gave birth to Mia. They put a clothes on her, put her in a basket, put a rose, put a little hat on her, and even brought a photographer around to take photos. I know that might seem bizarre, but it allowed us to have memories of Mia that would have become distant and gone over the years. But we have this beautiful photograph now, and we have some form of memory and relationship with Mia, although it was very, very small. But I reached out to Sands and I offered them the opportunity for us to provide our coaching services, both in the form of courses or maybe our coaches, to them in any way that we can support them. And they've accepted that, and we're going to go into partnership together. So does that make things any better for the scenario? It does. Does it make it less painful? It does. Does it make it not painful at all? No. But it's an improvement, right? Now I could sit and victim. I could pick up a bottle of whiskey. I could go and punch someone in the face. I could land in jail. And I could say, I'm in here because this happened, and people would go, fair enough. I'd probably do the same. But not only did I not do that, I tried to look for a way of how I could help other people in that scenario, so that Mia's name isn't just left in vain, I believe the expression is. More people are helped as a result of what happened to Mia. And Diana, my wife, is actually a trained counsellor, and she is moving into the direction of helping women who have had bereavement with children. So already, it's hard to say because it seems so brutal. Mia's death is going to help hundreds of other people. Without Mia's death, myself and my wife wouldn't have had the decision to go and help those hundreds or thousands of people. Now, I'm not saying I'm grateful it happened. I wish it never did. But what am I in control of? And this goes back to the serenity prayer. I don't know how many videos you've watched of mine. I don't know how many courses you've done of mine. But I will never, ever stop mentioning the serenity prayer. And it doesn't have to be religious, but it is literally a game changer. And it's what I live my life by. Grant me the serenity, and that means peace. Grant me the peace to accept things I cannot change, right? It's as simple as that. Things I can't change, just accept them and not try and change them, because you can't. If you try and put all your energy and all your might and all your thought and all your emotion and all your learning and development and growth into trying to reverse something that's irreversible, you are just going to be left in a state of heartache and disappointment, because it will not change. So grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, first of all. Grant me the courage to change the things I can. So give me the courage to go out there and do the change that I can change. I can't change Mia's death, but I can help Sands, which will help other people in that situation. And grant me the wisdom to know the difference. Because if I know the difference between the things I can't change and the things I can change, things will be a hell of a lot more productive. So I'll leave this one on. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This has been Raymond Taylor. Remember, you are in control, and you are enough, you are loved enough, and you have enough. Over and out. I'm Raymond Taylor, and I'm going to show you how to create a freedom-based online coaching business from scratch.